Amy, it's great to have you here. I'm so excited to talk about the incredible life journey you've had and the big leap you made from your educational background, teaching in Utah, all the way to going full nationwide developer as a real estate investor. And I know all the things along the way, but our audience will get to hear it. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, for sure.
So let's roll back to the very beginning. Do you remember when you first started pondering real estate as an investment? When was that?
I'm going to take you one step back farther, just so individuals don't think like, oh, she was born with a silver spoon. Just to paint a small picture, is that for several years, my family lived on a piece of dirt that we lived in a trailer with 5 kids in there. So, I have a family of 8 kids, brothers and sisters now, but then it was 5. So I just wanted to let you know, like, that's kind of my humble beginnings of where we started with. Okay. So, jumping to your question now of when did I start thinking of real estate, is it definitely was outside of the box. So I was a school teacher. I went to Utah State Engineering. I did have an emphasis in housing. Family consumer science education was my degree. And I enjoyed the finance part and housing part. I became a teacher because I'm very passionate about teaching and helping individuals rise to their true potential. And that really resonated with me. I remember vividly, and I can still remember it today, of when we wanted to make a change. And that's, I was pregnant. We're in a very small little house. Our make ends meet were very, very tight. My husband had to ride his bike to school to work and school. He was working in school too, because we couldn't afford the gas of 2 cars or 2 cars. And so he's riding his bike. I'm opening our mail. I remember I'm in this really tiny kitchen, this painted bright red and white melamine cabinets, and I'm super pregnant. And I look and I'm opening this mail, and I open a Sallie Mae piece of mail, and my heart kind of dropped of saying, well, shoot, how in the world are we going to get past this? Because we are barely making ends meet now as being a school teacher, and my husband's he was going to school for an engineer. He was still working as an engineer, but didn't have an outstanding paycheck. We're working paycheck to paycheck. And I'm just like, okay, when he finishes this school, how on earth are we going to get out of this student loan debt? Like, what are we going to do? And this is not how I painted my life. Like, this is not what I signed up for. I'm not excited about this. And so that emotion, I was like, okay, I got to get creative. We've got to figure out something, because doing this is not going to work for the whole future. And I definitely, I'm super pregnant, and I'm thinking, and it took us a while to get this child. And I was like, I'm not bringing a child into this right now in this situation. And not that it was in a bad situation, but I just was like, I want to build this wealth or this dream for my children moving forward. And so we just really got to in depth about researching and seeing, okay, what could we do? And that's when we looked into real estate, and we took a bunch of different classes. My husband's boss at that time was signing on his second home. And my husband, Jared, said, hey, I know you don't make I know you're my boss, but I know you don't make tons more to buy a whole other house. How are you buying this other house, and what is it for? It's not a summer home. Why were you buying it there? It's not for a second luxury home. He said, oh, well, it's going to be a rental. We're going to turn it into a rental. And so that individual kind of opened the door of saying, hey, maybe you should look into this. And so we did. We researched the crap out of things, and every night stayed up late looking into it. And we said, okay, we're going to, because we didn't have a huge amount of down payment back then, right? Because we barely had enough to pay for gas. So getting a down payment seemed like monstrous. But we washed windows. We sold everything in our house of furniture-wise that we could of value. We did odd jobs. My husband donated plasma. I took up tutoring on top of stuff, everything we could. And we saved a whole whopping, back then it was $3,000, so but it was a lot for us. And we got an FHA loan, and we found the grossest, dirtiest, disgusting house, and bought it with an FHA loan, and we put renters in our house. And that started the snowball of getting into real estate and changing. We had to go through that ugly and that uphill to get the momentum, to get things changing for us in our life.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So that initial start, creatively absorbing the financing and getting a renter in there, at what point did you start to realize you could take this more seriously and become a full-time professional? When did that idea start to occur?
Yeah, so we started as real estate investors first. And some would say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do that. But we were purchasing before our crash. And we were inspired at that time we said, okay, we see this journey. We're actually going to cash out our 401k, my husband's 401k. And that's what we're going to use to buy the next house. And we're just like, if these numbers match up, my husband's total nerd and does the numbers. I'm not. But he's like, if these numbers match up, I think it'll make sense. And it's worth the gamble. Like, we are worth the gamble taking on this. And we also both talked about the worst case scenario. We're like, okay, let's talk about like total worst case scenario. We could go back at working at McDonald's and we'll be okay. Even though I have a teaching degree and he has an engineering degree, we're not going to McDonald's, but we thought, okay, we can go, if we totally screw up and fail, we can pick ourselves back up, because we compared, we look forward 10 other years and there's other individuals that had failed and they were able to pick themselves back up. So why not try? We were worth the gamble. And so we said, okay, we're going to do it. And we cashed that out. We cashed out our 401k, and not more than 3 months later, the crash hit. And we would have probably not had any of that money, almost, a fraction of that money then anyway. And so we're like, okay, well, that was worth the gamble. The great thing about that opened up the door for us is that crash hit. And we still had our jobs, and we still lived very conservatively. And we had this small bucket of money. And so back then, with the bank foreclosures, this was, after we had waited just a little bit, but the bank foreclosures started coming out, and they would say, hey, you can buy it for 10% down, this lower interest rate, free appraisal, and and we'll also put our own brand new carpet in and paint, like they would be fixing them up. And so we bought, and different short sales. So we bought like a 5-bedroom house for $55K. We bought another house in a good area that we are actually just barely selling now. And so we'd buy these different houses, and individuals would come to us then and say, we see what you're doing. We like it. Can we partner with you? And so we would buy other houses too. And we were very bankable then. And so we would get the loan, and we would still show that we have the down payment, but they would also help with the down payment or help fund the repairs. And that's just what kind of started. I didn't actually get my real estate license. We were doing this side by side. I was still teaching, and he was still being an engineer, and I was still doing tutoring, and I was still doing USU Extension, teaching USU Extension to WIC mothers, mothers that needed help. Anyway, so I was still doing all of these things on top of it. And we went through lots of different things. And to a point that what started to change is we're like, okay, we really want to do more, but this is very, very slow. It's very slow to find a property, a residential property that fits our numbers or our criteria. It's very slow to get the whole bank loan and go through it. And we want to scale faster. And so when I got my license about 12 years ago, pregnant with my fourth child. So that was that journey. So there was 1 to 4 kids, we had that. And then my fourth child, Lucy, I was pregnant with her. I took my test and then had her the next week. So I remember that. So 12 years ago, I got my license, and then I acted more as an agent for it, which actually took me a small step back from real estate investing, is putting an agent hat on. I was so busy wanting to help other investors, and I would put the agent hat on and I would kind of wipe and not look at deals for ourselves. And I didn't love that, but it was a learning experience. That's okay. So yeah, that's what trajected us to saying, okay, we need to scale larger. And we decided, okay, we're going to sell a couple of our houses. We sold 2 houses together, I believe. And we said, okay, we're going to go into some of these larger deals. And that was a self-storage project back then. And that's what got me into development as well, because I love to learn and listen. And I said, yes, I'll be your LP investor, or back then it was a joint venture. But I was mostly bringing the money. And so I said, we'll be that. But I also, in turn, I just want to learn from you. I want to see what you're doing, how you're doing it for it. And that kind of opened the door from residential real estate investing to land development investing.
Most people view that as almost more risky. Just as you're starting to learn and you go, we want to go faster and scale, you're also going to add a skill set. But as you look back at it, do you think those were essential skill sets to add as you were preparing for your next leap, which was to start building your brokerage? Or how did that all become through a pipeline for you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand that there's a couple safe factors that we put in place. So number one, we live very conservatively. We kind of our personal lives. Some people may know a Dave Ramsey. I feel like we were more of like a Dave Ramsey type of individual. Our cars are paid for, no credit cards, that kind of stuff. But we were very bullish when it came to real estate investing and jumping in. The other part to understand, and it's not a bad thing to understand, is do you want to be active in the real estate investing, or do you want to be passive? And at that time, I would have made just as much money being completely passive to this individual's thing. It was me that, like, I love to learn. I want to know more. That's why I wanted to shadow and learn and how to do it more, to give me those skills. But would I have made the same amount of money? Yes, I would have. I probably would have been fine. But it's a passion of mine. And once I understood, like, holy cow, I can't believe this, it was totally okay. So individuals that have a passion at your normal W-2 job or whatever job you have, if that's your passion, don't give up that passion. Let it still stay. Keep working at it and invest invest with your profits here to make it work. So you don't have to be the active individual to make real estate investing happen for you. And to be honest, there has been, especially when they morphed into land development, there were years that now I have gone, especially from being a very high producing agent. Remember how I said I wasn't really looking at deals for myself and I was looking at it for others. So I would close, hundreds of thousands of of commission, being a great agent, caring about other individuals. And I wasn't investing at all. So I had high income, low on investments. And then I switched and I said, okay, me and Jared had a conversation, and he had a very large corporate job. He was regional manager of an entire Western nation and he'd travel like crazy. And we were kind of sick and tired of it, and we were a little sick and tired of it, but he provided those golden handcuffs a little bit. So, we had outstanding benefits, and we said, okay, we want to change our life of being rich with our time and our efforts and things like that. So we want to make this adjustment. In order to make that adjustment, we need to stop working day to day on the commissions and start looking for longer term growth. And so we needed to make this switch. In order to make that switch, we talked about it and said, okay, Amy, I said, okay, are you okay with this? And that meant for about 4 to 5 years, I was working like crazy, getting assets, working on stuff, and not getting a paycheck every single month. And so that was a transition for us, but it propelled us, right? So our net worth was going like this, but we were a little bit cash poor because we took away a whole income inside. But we still worked conservatively. It worked, and it definitely has paid off. But it was interesting for us because during that whole time of learning and understanding and getting deals, and you'd work so hard on a deal and then it would fall apart and you've been working on it for 8 months, or you work so hard on a project and then you get a denial from the city. And that was just like, everything that was supposed to be quick wasn't quick. So development is never the easy route. It does have some really large equity multipliers that happen with it. And the skills and the individuals that I collected along those way were invaluable. So I sometimes think of it as I was taking a master's degree in development, not getting paid, but learning a lot of great information to move myself forward.
At what point did you look back and realize your teaching career is now over the horizon? It's no longer even visible. You are now a full-on real estate professional. And perhaps this aligns with the growth of your brokerage, but tell us, at what point did you realize, like, this is the new me? The past is gone. I am now completely in this game.
Yeah. I would say that even though I had stopped teaching, something that made, like, formally, and I didn't have to make grades or any, standardized tests, something that I carried along and I felt was very influential to my business as an agent, in my brokerage, to my agents, and to investors moving forward as I do game plans for them and tell them, help educate them on what to do, is that I've always loved that skill set of teaching. It's just a different modality now instead. So, but yeah, definitely old me. I would say the old me was the scarcity mind of thinking, right? Living in a trailer and barely breaking through of going to college. That was supposed to be the monumental thing. Never even fathom in my life, if you would have asked me as a 12-year-old, Amy, are you going to be doing a $70 million deal? No, I wouldn't. I would have never thought. Little old Amy couldn't do that. But at 12, but now it's like, yeah, of course, let's do it. Let's rock this. So those skills I carried on for it.
So tell us now about where the brokerage started to stabilize and you started to pursue the work that ended up with you partnering with Y Street Capital, which is now your business as well. When did that transition happen? Because that, I understand, is a whole new level of Amy.
Yeah, it was. So that's where we were working and it goes back to, remember I said we were really wanting a change with my husband being on his corporate job. And so we penciled down and did a goals retreat, not an inner goals retreat inside, which we're doing one in November. So if you want, message me and I can talk to you about it. But anyway, so we wrote down our goals and we said, okay, what do we actually need to make? What do we actually need to make to have this time freedom so that you are not gone 200 days out of the year and you can see your kids and we can really not get divorced and, like things were rocky. Okay. So we took that, we reverse engineered it and we said, okay, we need to, Jared got his license as a real estate agent and became a great real estate agent. But then he came and took his corporate world of saying, okay, Amy, you're running things off of your memory and this is not great. Your memory is not fabulous sometimes. And you're working yourself to death. And we need to work this more as a business instead of an individual thing. And so during that time when there was a year that I said, okay, I am quitting real estate. I actually had quit real estate for a year because I said, I got to focus on my family. I've got these little kids. I got to focus on our marriage. Like I was a little bit in crisis mode. This was before Jared canceled or quit, but I was just like, I've got to focus here. I'm losing my priorities. And so I quit real estate for an entire year. And I realized that wasn't the answer, that I just needed to work smarter and not harder. And so I took up, we got an outstanding coach. Back then it was Tom Ferry's organization. And we dove in and said, okay, how do we make this a business instead of just relying on if Amy doesn't stop working, we don't get paid, like how can we take those factors and those skills that we learned has helped us. We've now have multiple businesses and we've been able to kind of capture those skills and say, okay, what is it so that we are not a key man industry of saying if one person doesn't work, we can still move forward and keep working. And that was an invaluable skill for us to pause, take a step back and look and see, okay, how can we alter this? How can we change this? And so Jared was really monumental in, even though we joke and say it's in offering docs because as a woman-owned business, I'm 98% owner, but he really has flourished it. And so now we have over 30 agents inside our brokerage and it's grown really, really well. Because we teach and we have all these resources and all the other parts for it. And we've been able to say, okay, this is the fundamentals. These are what we need. And so he kind of Jared runs the whole brokerage and I'm in the office, but I'm here kind of, but I don't do residential deals. And it's helped grow so that we can have those multiple things of income for it.
So Y Street Capital emerged because you were using the consultant side of this business in order to influence some of the developments you were working on. At what point did you realize you want to make the maneuver out of brokerage entirely and into full-time developer? Like, what was that?
Yeah, that was great. I was pidging back and forth a little bit. I was working on my own. I knew I wanted some bigger skills to get to those bigger deals. And I didn't quite have all of those skills. And that's where I got into consulting for Y Street Capital. And as where it really flourished was looking at kind of your spectrum. There's that, I'm trying to remember it's like, what you love to do, what you're okay doing, what you hate to do, and say, okay, what are the systems that we could put in place that I can find deals, talk to people, teach people, and put together deals, and then have other individuals help me with all the other messy stuff that I hate for it. And that's where, when I found that, and we had done a few other consulting things, and I was really ready to jump to this, I would say industry standards instead, like a higher level standard of working with, family office money or larger capital. that's when our assets part of I wasn't the whole owner. Instead, instead of being 50% owner of the whole asset, I was a smaller piece of the pie, but I had a bigger pie and more assets and larger projects that I could be part of. So I hope that answered your question. But.
So cool. So do you and Jared do your goals retreats, and Y Street Capital has its goals retreat in a month and a half now. Do you and Jared have any anticipation of what your next big leap will be? Kind of where Amy will delegate and elevate once again and go, okay, now we're even more on target. Is that clear yet?
Yeah, it actually is. We've been working towards that. One interesting factor, and it's different for everybody, but there's a certain factor. Both of us, Jared grew up homeless too, lived in a truck by the river for a little bit. So we both kind of came from this scarcity mindset to start. We've luckily have transferred that into this growth mindset. But there was a point of saying, we don't have enough. We don't have enough. We want to build more. We want more, right? And now we have come to this large realization. Part of that has been, I had a really strong health journey that kind of really awakened us a little bit, just saying, okay, going back to, and I guess that goes back to, like, remember when I said, okay, we took a pause, we stepped back, I quit real estate for a year, and then we realigned and what was really important. Well, I feel like that this second health journey helped us do that as well, and saying, okay, what are we really passionate about? And when is enough enough? Like, are we okay with what we have? And now what are we going to build for our posterity? And so we're looking at what we have. Well, our mission now that we're working towards is not so much we need enough in savings, we need enough in net worth, we need, these things. Instead, now we're saying, okay, we're good here. And what are we going to do to help prosper and help the world around us? And more a higher level, like, how are we going to give back to the individuals or help bring up an individual that's been trodden down a little bit? And that's kind of been our newest mission of looking at, okay, how we've put our oxygen masks on and we're safe and good and healthy now. How can we impact others? How can we give back to the communities and help them? And honestly, I feel that doesn't mean, that's actually, once we've taken that, which has been a new realization for us, is I have only seen things, karma is a great thing, and I've seen it actually, go even bigger for us. It's not that we've left off the gas of our other businesses. We've taken on other businesses as well, or people have wanted to be, like, hey, we'll help you with this business. So we're still part of other businesses, and we just have been better at delegating. We've been better at managing our resources, figuring out what's most important. And I guess that karma of saying, oh, okay, now you're helping people even more. You're not being so selfish, working on just your own family. How we've just had even more things come along for it. So I don't know.
So inspiring. As we've outlined, Amy's big leap is not really just one big leap, but numerous big leaps along the way to level up, to delegate and elevate, to say, this is who I want to be, and this is how I'm going to transfer my skill set and experience to a new horizon. When do we get to start meeting some of your kids who are following you in that path?
They're coming along. They're really crazy and great. No, they're doing some incredible things. I'm excited about it. They're loud, a little bit obnoxious. Maybe one day, I don't know. We'll put them out on there. I don't know. Lizzie has more subscribers on YouTube than I do. She's like outstanding, but does her own quirky things. I want to just touch base in case somebody is listening to this and saying, that's great, but, or wouldn't that be nice if, or I get the comment of it must be nice, or you're so lucky, is the largest thing that we were able to do or make the largest improvement is taking a bet on yourself and saying, you know what, I got this and we can do this, and having faith in yourself that you can do larger things. And like you said, you pointed out, I didn't go from teaching to buying 100 or 1,800 acres and doing land development. It wasn't that step, right? It's small. How are we showing up for ourselves day after day to make those improvements to get to where you want to go? So that's what I would say, just in case somebody is feeling like I'm stuck for it. So, and we've had some, it wasn't all rainbows through that process. Another time we could talk about, failures. We've failed on a couple of things that we've learned a lot of great life lessons, but lost some money. Or I think anybody that's been in business long enough, you'd almost be worried if they hadn't failed for it. So we have failed, and like I said, we've had the downsides, we've had health, we've had cancer, we've had all sorts of things pop up in our life journey for it. And so, but that's okay. With every dark moment, there's a light moment, and it just helps you understand and appreciate the light moments for it. So, yeah.
I just shared with anyone who's feeling in that space, if you are listening and going, I'm looking for that space where I can make that next big leap, the goals retreat that Y Street Capital offers would be a great solution for you to come and deeply consider what your outline should be for life and what you're looking for. So, of course, the Y Street Capital team will be there. I'm sure Amy can share this whole story once again. And Amy, thank you so much for doing so. It's ceaselessly inspiring and extremely fun to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it.